For 6 years, you watched a scene and thought you understood it. Chapter 907. The Elbaf Arc. A cloaked figure with red hair walks through the halls of Mary Geoise and sits before the 5 elders, the most powerful men in the world government. The camera never shows the left side of his face. The anime gives him Shanks' exact voice actor, and every fan in the world looked at that scene and thought, that's Shanks. He's a traitor. He's working with the enemy. That single scene broke the fandom in half. Half of us were convinced Shanks had finally revealed his true colors, that the cheerful, sick-drinking emperor was actually a spy embedded deep inside pirate society, feeding information back to the world government. The other half refused to believe it. They said Oda would never do that to Shanks. They said something was off, that the face was hidden on purpose, that the timeline didn't add up. Both sides argued for years, and the entire time, Oda was laughing, because the answer was never. Shanks or not Shanks, the answer was something nobody fully prepared for. The answer was that Shanks has a twin brother, an older twin who chose the exact opposite life. A twin who serves IMU directly. A twin who commands the Knights of God. A twin who is now standing on the shores of Elbaf. And his name is Figarland Shamrock. And once you understand who Shamrock is, what he represents, and what Oda has been building towards since God Valley, nothing about One Piece will ever look the same again. So let's start from the very beginning, because the truth is darker than you think. Let's establish what we know, what the show tells us. The facts on the table. Figarland Shamrock is a world noble and the commander of the Knights of God, born in God Valley. He is the son of Saint Figarland Garling, one of the 5 elders of the world government, and the older twin brother of Shanks, one of the 4 emperors. One Piece Wiki read that again slowly. The older twin brother of Shanks, born in the same place, from the same parents, with the same blood. 2 children from God Valley, who grew up to represent the 2 most opposing forces in the entire world of One Piece. Shamrock and his younger twin Shanks were born on God Valley as the sons of a red-haired woman named Magnolia and the Knight of God and world noble Figarland Garling. Fandom their father, Garling, wasn't there when they were born. He only came back later, and when he did, the first thing he did was draw his sword and stab their mother. Not to protect the children, not out of regret. He killed Magnolia because he wanted to move on. He had his eyes set on something else, the ultimate prize of the God Valley competition. Right there, in that single act, Oda tells us everything we need to know about the Figarland bloodline. Power, hierarchy, and the world government's ideology come before everything else. Even blood, even family, even the mother of your own children. But here's where fate stepped in, miraculously. Monkey D. Dragon was one of the rookie Marines present at God Valley. A dying Magnolia bleeding on the floor found him a stranger and entrusted him with her 2 infant sons. She didn't ask him to raise them. She didn't even know if he was a good man. She just begged him to take them somewhere far away from Garling. IMU with Sinpadring grabbed both babies and ran, and for one brief moment in history, Luffy's father was carrying Shanks, his son's future mentor, through the chaos of God Valley. Think about that for a second, but fate doesn't give you both babies. Not in One Piece. In his search for a marine ship, Dragon was attacked by Saint Maffy, who recovered Shamrock for Garling, while unbeknownst to her, Dragon managed to survive her attack and fled with an unconscious Shanks. One Piece Wikimify only saw one child. She grabbed Shamrock and left, and just like that, the twins' lives split forever. Shanks ended up mixed in with treasure on the Roger Pirates ship, adopted into a crew that valued freedom above everything. Shamrock was taken to Mary Geoise and raised inside the most oppressive institution in the world. One twin raised by pirates. One twin raised by the world government. One twin became an emperor of the sea. One twin became the commander of the Knights of God. Identical bloodline. Completely opposite destinies. And here's where it starts getting strange. Here's what most fans missed. The fact that Shamrock appeared in episode 887 wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate choice by Oda to plant a seed to make you ask a question that he wouldn't answer for years. When Shamrock made his debut during the Elbaf Arc in episode 887, he was implied to be Shanks, sharing the same voice actor in the anime. Coincidentally, Shanks himself appeared earlier in that same episode, with the voice acting credits only referring to Shanks because Oda hadn't yet informed the anime staff about Shamrock. One Piece Wiki let that sink in. Oda kept Shamrock's existence so secret that even the anime production team didn't know he was a different character. They assumed it was Shanks because that was the only logical explanation. Nobody told them otherwise. That's not a mistake. That's a master-level long game, but there were clues hiding in plain sight. Fans who looked closely noticed something was wrong with that scene. The cloaked figure never showed the left side of his face, the side where Shanks has his 3 famous scars. The figure had both arms. The framing was just slightly off, like Oda was trying to show you something without showing it. And then there were the cover stories. Go back to the Lively chapters and look at how the 5 elders react to this visitor. They're not pleased to see Shanks or whoever this is. They're annoyed. They treat this visitor like a subordinate who's overstepping. Fans brought up why the 5 elders would be so annoyed at someone wanting to meet them, noting they had previously responded the same way to Garling himself, who has been nothing but loyal to the world government. The 5 elders simply don't see the knights as fully worthy of their attention. Fandom Morizo, even Garling the father, the supreme commander, gets the cold shoulder from the elders. This isn't Shanks getting special treatment. This is the Knights of God being reminded of their place in the hierarchy. That clue alone should have told us it wasn't a pirate walking through those doors. And then there's the SBS, the question and answer section Oda writes in the manga volumes. In the SBS for volume 114, Oda confirmed that it was Shamrock, not Shanks, who visited the 5 elders. One Piece Wiki 6 years. 6 years of debate, theories, and arguments, settled in a single SBS entry that most people didn't even read closely enough. But the biggest clue Oda left wasn't in the manga panels or the SBS. It was in the symbolism itself. Think about the name Shamrock, a 4-leaf clover, an Irish symbol of luck but also a symbol of duality. 2 leaves on one side, 2 leaves on the other. Identical pairs, mirror images of the same thing. Oda named this character Shamrock because he is Shanks' mirror image, not his opposite in a simple good versus evil sense. His mirror image in the deepest possible way. Same origin, same talent, same blood, completely different choices, and this is where Oda may have left his biggest clue. Here's what makes Shamrock more than just a villain. Here's what makes him the most philosophically important character Oda has introduced in the Final Saga. The most fascinating thing about Shamrock is not his power, his position among the Holy Knights, or even the revelation that he is Shanks' twin brother. What makes him compelling is that he represents the life Shanks rejected. Born into the same bloodline, the 2 brothers chose completely different paths. Shanks abandoned the privilege of the celestial dragons and found freedom among pirates. Shamrock embraced the ideology of Mary Geoise and became one of its most loyal enforcers. IMU with Senpink about what that means for Shanks' entire arc. We've always known there was something different about Shanks. He's an emperor who doesn't conquer. He's a pirate who seeks peace. He has no known devil fruit. He walks into places like Marineford and entire wars stop not because of brute force, but because of something Oda never fully explained. Now we know why. At 1 point, Shanks discovered his heritage and returned home, joining Shamrock as a knight in training. Shanks wasn't just a pirate who got lucky. He was a Figarland heir who chose to walk away. He got close enough to Mary Geoise to understand exactly what the world government was, and then he turned his back on it. Shanks returned to Mary Geoise and joined the Devoted Blades, but worked against the government during Fisher Tiger's raid and then suddenly disappeared a year later. Villain's Wiki One Piece Wiki. This is the detail that changes everything. Shanks didn't just escape God Valley as a baby and accidentally become a pirate. He returned. He went back to Mary Geoise as a young man. He saw the system from the inside. He saw what the covenants were. He saw what IMU was. And he made a conscious, deliberate choice to leave. He didn't just stumble into being a good person. He saw the alternative, the life Shamrock chose, and he rejected it on purpose. That's not a character who got lucky. That's a character who made the hardest possible choice. And here's the evidence Oda planted to support this theory. Garling explicitly stated in an Elbaf flashback that Shanks and Shamrock possessed equal natural talent. The only variable separating their current power levels is the Depths Covenant power that IMU granted to Shamrock. Shonen Vortex. In other words, Shanks and Shamrock started at exactly the same level. The only reason Shamrock may be stronger right now is because he made a deal with IMU. He traded his free will for power, and Shanks refused. That's the theory. Shanks is not just an emperor. Shanks is a man who was offered everything the world government could give: bloodline, power, immortality, a covenant with IMU herself, and he said no. He walked away from Mary Geoise, freed Fisher Tiger on the way out, and never looked back, and Shamrock has hated him for it ever since. But here's the detail nobody talks about because of Shanks' desertion. Harald was promoted to the Knights of God and received the Depths Covenant from IMU. One Piece Wiki: Shanks' defection didn't just affect his own story. It changed the fate of Elbaf. Harald, the king of Elbaf, the father of Loki, only became a Knight of God because Shanks left. Harald was the replacement. The world government needed someone in Elbaf, and when their first choice walked away, they found another candidate. They gave Harald the covenant, placed an abyss in his castle, and commanded him to turn his entire people into a military force serving the world government. Harald objected, as he had entered into this service to promote a culture of peace on Elbaf. But IMU used the covenant to assert control over him. One Piece Wikimu possessed Harald's body, took over his will, forced a man who wanted peace to become an instrument of war, and then Harald was killed with his own son Loki being blamed for it. Suddenly, a completely different picture emerges: the tragedy of Loki, the fallen prince imprisoned by his own people. Blamed for killing his father traces directly back to Shanks walking out of Mary Geoise. If Shanks had stayed, Harald would never have received the covenant. IMU would never have possessed him, and Loki would never have been framed. One man's choice to be free created a chain reaction that destroyed a kingdom, and now Shamrock has arrived in Elbaf to finish what the world government started. The most important twist of episode 1167 comes with the introduction of Figarland Shamrock. His appearance resembles Shanks, but the most interesting reveal is that he is the commander of the Knights of God and aims to bring Elbaf under world government control. The revelation makes the conflict feel much bigger than just Elbaf. Fandom Wire: and this changes everything. The Straw Hats didn't sail into a war between giants. They sailed into the world government's final attempt to close the last major nation that refuses to kneel. Elbaf isn't just Usopp's dream destination. It's the last free giant kingdom, and Shamrock is there to end that freedom. Now look at the power scale Oda gave Shamrock. Shamrock's arrival on Elbaf is accompanied by an enormous conqueror's hockey eruption, depicted as a storm of black lightning. This overwhelming aura was sensed even by legendary figures like Skapar Gaban, Animuith's Paskirk Gaban, a man who fought alongside Gall D. Roger, a man who has seen the strongest people in the world. And Shamrock's suppressed hockey made him take notice. Garling once said that his younger brother Shanks may reach Shamrock's level upon receiving a Depths Covenant, a statement made 14 years ago. One Piece Wicked, father of Shanks, said 14 years ago that Shanks might eventually reach the level of his older brother, not surpass him, reach him. Shamrock isn't just Shanks' equal. He may be Shanks' ceiling. Here's what episode 1167 is really setting up. And it's bigger than Elbaf. Shamrock's presence guarantees that the Straw Hats cannot leave Elbaf without a collision with the Holy Knights. His relationship with Shanks guarantees that collision will carry emotional weight beyond a standard fight. Shonen Vortex: this isn't just a battle arc. This is the arc where Shanks is forced to confront the question he has been running from since God Valley. Who are you when everything about your origin says you should be the enemy? Shanks has spent his entire life as a pirate, but he was born a celestial dragon. He was raised by pirates, but his blood is Figarland. He rejected the covenant, but IMU knows his name. He freed Fisher Tiger, but the world government still considers him part of their lineage. Shamrock is the living embodiment of the path Shanks didn't take, and Oda doesn't bring a mirror character into the story just to have one brother beat the other in a fight. Shamrock is there to make Shanks answer for his choices. Not in a courtroom, on a battlefield, and beyond the personal stakes, there are the Final Saga implications. Shamrock went back to the Holy Land of Mary Geoise due to an emergency there, as IMU requested. Something happened at Mary Geoise serious enough that the commander of the Knights of God had to abandon the Elbaf mission mid-operation. Whatever IMU called him back for is more urgent than annexing the last free giant kingdom in the world. What could be more urgent than that? Think about the timeline. The Straw Hats just came from Egghead Island, where the full nature of the Void Century began to unravel. The Poneglyphs are being located. Laugh Tale is getting closer. And IMU, the actual ruler of the world, the person Shamrock serves, is moving through his covenant with IMU. Shamrock gains superhuman power, an immortal body, and the ability to generate and utilize pentagrams as a means of long-distance movement at the cost of being totally subservient to IMU, who can overrule a knight's personal will and even possess their body outright. Beduikathi Knights of God are not just soldiers. They are extensions of IMU's will. When Shamrock moves, IMU moves. When Shamrock acts, IMU acts through him, and IMU is preparing for something. Here's the complete picture, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Oda didn't create Shamrock to be a villain you hate. He created Shamrock to be a mirror. Two boys born in the same place, to the same parents, with the same natural talent. One is raised by people who value freedom, laughter, and the open sea. One is raised by an institution that values hierarchy, control, and submission to a ruler who has sat on a throne for centuries. Shanks became one of the most beloved characters in the history of anime. Shamrock became the commander of the most powerful military force in the world. The difference between them isn't intelligence. It isn't power. It isn't even luck, though luck played a role in how Maffy took only one twin that day on God Valley. The difference between Shanks and Shamrock is the people who raised them, and that is Oda's real message. 1. Peace has always been a story about what it means to be free, about whether the world you were born into determines who you become, about whether blood and lineage define your destiny or whether you can choose your own path regardless of what family you came from. Luffy was born the son of the world's most wanted criminal. Nami was born into poverty and stolen from her home. Robin spent her entire childhood being hunted by the world government. Zoro grew up as an orphan in a small dojo with no family name, no connections, no lineage. None of them became who they are because of where they started. They became who they are because of the choices they made. Shanks is the proof that the Figarland bloodline doesn't make you evil. Shamrock is the proof that it can. And somewhere in the Final Saga, those two truths are going to collide on the shores of Elbaf. The boy who stayed in the chest. The boy who was taken to Mary Geoise. One became an emperor of the sea who fights for humanity. One became a knight of God who serves the entity that has enslaved it. Oda planned this from the moment Shanks picked up that fruit in the beginning of the story. Every red hair, every God Valley reference, every Knights of God chapter, it was all pointing here. To a single question. When two people start in the exact same place, what determines who they become? One Piece has been building to that answer for over 1,000 chapters, and we're finally close enough to see it. If this theory turns out to be true, it doesn't just change how we see Shamrock. It completely reframes Shanks' entire journey, and it might be the emotional core of the entire Final Saga. But here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Shanks and Shamrock will actually fight in Elbaf? And if they do, who wins? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want the next breakdown the moment it drops, subscribe and hit the bell, because this arc is just getting started.